When the first Skyward X came out, it struck me as a running Spruce Goose. It was gigantic, loaded with features and buzzwords, and I wasn't quite sure who was the target audience. Can the follow-up to this big bird help clarify what exactly Hoka is trying to do here? It's time to lace up the Skyward X2 and take it for a ride. Yo, what's going on? My name is Kofuzi and I'm an elite runner who reviews running shoes here on YouTube, and today I want to talk to you guys about the Hoka Skyward X2. But before I give you my thoughts about this shoe, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that Hoka sent to me for the purpose of review, so I didn't have to pay for these shoes. However, nobody's paying me to make this video or to include their brand in this video, and no one's gonna get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Hoka Skyward X, and let's start with the specs. This is a tall shoe, although it's a little bit less tall than last year. This year starts at 46 millimeters of stack height in the heel versus the 48 millimeters of last year. But then a lot of the other kind of paper specs are the same. There's still a 5 millimeter drop, meaning we still have a lot of foam in the forefoot. There's 41 millimeters of stack height in the forefoot, and there's still those same three components in this shoe. We have a top layer of PIBA, a bottom layer of supercritical EVA, and a kind of a carbon fiber plate. There's a carbon kind of stabilizing element. It's more of a carbon framework, and it's a little bit of a different design that we saw last year. While we're down here looking at the bottom of the shoe, we can see that there is that same big channel and a window to that carbon fiber plate in here, but there's also a lot of that durabrasion rubber that Hoka puts on their shoes to give this shoe plenty of grip and durability. As we move to the upper of the shoe, we have a pretty similar setup as last time, where we have a Checkered mesh that is strong but breathable. They've removed a lot of the padding from the tongue to make it a little bit thinner, and there is a very similar amount of padding, maybe just a touch a little bit more padding in the heel cup area in this shoe compared to last year. Another difference is that there isn't so much plastic armor around the heel cup. There is still some of that plastic in the back this year, but it's a lot thinner. There's not as much of it, so it's not quite as big of a cup that your heel is going to be sitting in, but you still have these large sidewalls on both the lateral and on the medial sides to keep your foot from sliding around too much. As far as sizing goes, I went with my usual running shoe size, and for me that's a US men's 9. I think I probably also could have gone with a 9.5 to give myself just a little bit more room, but a 9 worked well for me, as did the 9 worked well for me in the first version of the Skyward X. In the Bondi, just to compare, and in case that's a shoe that you have more experience with, I usually like to size up on the Bondi. I go with the men's 9.5, but I think there's just a little bit less padding overall in the Skyward X2, so you could probably go with your regular running shoe size. Altogether, this shoe is still kind of on the heavy side, but they've managed to drop quite a bit of weight. Now, there is a lot of discrepancy when you look online in terms of what the weights for last year's version of this shoe was and what for this one is. I've taken weights of mine before I ran in them in both of the shoes in the same size, US men's size 9, which is reference size. And this year, the Skyward X2 drops quite a bit of weight. It drops 1.4 ounces of weight, coming in at a measured weight of 9.7 ounces and 276 grams. Now that we talked about what this shoe is like on paper, let's talk about what it's like on the road. I really like the updates to the Skyward X2. This year, the shoe makes a lot more sense to me. Last year, I couldn't tell if this shoe was trying to be like a mega max cushion shoe or if it was trying to be a long run shoe with some of the components that they were using. And for me, it didn't do a really great job of either one of those. This year, it does a much better job of identifying itself as just a really premium max cushion shoe. The shoe is a lot lighter than it was last year, and I think a big part of that is it seems like they've changed the ratio of really lightweight and premium PIBA foam to the not as premium daily training supercritical EVA that they use in the shoe. And that gives me an experience that I think is a lot more pleasant, a lot softer, but also a lot more bouncy and airy. And now, I don't think that the carbon fiber plate here is doing a lot in the speed dimension, but I do think that this shoe is speedier. And again, I think that's because of the PIBA layer that's in the shoe. And the carbon fiber plate and the supercritical EVA layer aren't kind of binding or locking it in too much, so they're letting the PIBA do what PIBA can do. I think this shoe is going to be really enjoyable as a max cushion shoe for people who have enjoyed shoes like the Bondi and wish that it would kind of just go another step extra in terms of amping up the Bondi soft cloud-like experience. And at the same time, I know a lot of you guys get a little bit concerned when I talk about how squishy and enjoyable a shoe can be, but I do think the carbon fiber plate that's in here, or the carbon fiber framework that's in here, does a good job of kind of keeping everything from getting too unstable when those softer materials are getting compressed with each foot strike. Now, I do think though that people that are loving the Bondi for a little bit of a mix of running and casual wear, or people that are using the Bondi only as a shoe that they're walking around in, working in, being on their feet in, might not enjoy the Skyward X2 as an upgraded experience like runners might. And that's because I think the way that people's feet interact with the shoes and the ground when they're walking or standing versus running is a little bit different. So what's comfortable in one arena isn't always comfortable in the other arena. So for those people, I'm gonna think that you're gonna wanna stay with the Bondi 9. But I think for people that are wanting an elevated, even comfier, even squishier, even more energetic version of that Bondi, which is something that I've been wanting for years, I think the Skyward X2 is that shoe. Now let's wrap up this video by going over the buying guide, and we'll also discuss some alternatives. The Hoka Skyward X2 is a refreshingly bouncy max cushion shoe that also provides a really comfortable amount of softness. Now, you are going to be paying for a lot of that fun comfort though, because the Skyward X2 comes at a retail price of $225. Now, you can try and save money by going to the previous version. I think that's kind of like the traditional wisdom, but the Skyward X1 is a very different shoe. I think it's a lot more stabilized. I think Hoka was a little bit afraid to let the shoe kind of breathe in the way that they're letting the foams breathe in the Skyward X version 2. So it's much more stabilized. It's a lot more firm. And unfortunately, at least at the time of this filming, you're not saving any money by going with the Skyward X1, as that shoe still retails at the full $225 retail price of that shoe. Now, before we talk about some alternatives, I do think we need to talk a little bit more about the Bondi 9. I already talked about it a little bit in the context of walkers and what they might prefer versus runners and what we might prefer. But I think if you are looking to save some money on the Skyward X2, I do think that the Bondi 9 provides a reasonable alternative. I feel like the Bondi 9 is kind of a toned down version of what you're getting in the Skyward X2. Now, I mentioned that the Skyward X2 has a supercritical EVA foam as the bottom layer, and the Bondi 9 is just supercritical EVA. It doesn't have the PIBA top layer, and it doesn't have the carbon fiber framework or plate that's in it. But it still provides a surprisingly bouncy experience using the supercritical EVA, and it has a tall stack height and a wide footprint. So there's a little bit more stability to it, and there is still a nice amount of cushion and bounce. So I do really like this Bondi. It's, I think, my favorite Bondi that Hoka has made. So that could be something for you to take a look at. That is going to save you a little bit of money because that shoe's been out for a little while. So while it does retail at $175, which in and of itself is $50 cheaper, you can find some colors of the Bondi 9 available at a discount down to $140. So you're saving a lot of money by going with the Bondi 9. Now let's take a look at what some of the rest of the market has to offer to see where the $225 of the Skyward X2 stacks up. And I think the first shoe that immediately came to mind is a shoe that I haven't actually done the full review for yet. I've only just started reviewing the shoe, but the similarities between these shoes are so strong that I wanted to talk about it here. It's from Saucony. This is the Paramount Max. Now, this is a shoe that's using a high-end foam. It's using Saucony's Incredible foam, which is the same at least nominally the same foam that's in the Endorphin Elite 3, which is a $290 shoe. But the way they've set it up is very different than a racing shoe. They've set it up with a wide footprint and a very tall stack height and a lot of comfy materials all throughout the upper. And I think that what Saucony really is trying to do here is create like the ultimate Bondi competitor, even down to the styling. I think this is a bit of a departure from what Saucony normally makes, but kind of feels like a lot of what Hoka, at least historically, has made in the past. So I definitely think that Saucony is trying to create like a Bondi killer or perhaps a Skyward X killer, because both of these shoes provide a very soft but bouncy experience that I think is great for daily training in a very cushioned kind of way. Now, I believe that the Paramount Max is going to be coming in a retail price of $200, so you're saving $25 by going with the Saucony. Now, for me, the decision between these two shoes is very close, and it's hard for me to really pick. I prefer the $25 cheaperness of the Paramount Max, but I definitely prefer the styling of the Skyward X2. And the last shoe that I want to talk about today comes from ASICS, and this is the Superblast 3. This is another really tall, soft, but also bouncy shoe. It's using an aliphatic TPU top layer and a daily training foam bottom layer. And like the Paramount Max, it doesn't have any sort of carbon fiber plate or framework that's inside here. And this is a shoe that I would also use similarly. I love using this as a max cushion shoe. It's really great for those days where I want to have something really soft underfoot, like on a recovery run, but it's also still energetic enough and fun enough that I can use it for daily training, kind of runs that you do most of the days of the week, but also it has that little extra bounce in here from that ATPU top layer that I could also pick up the pace on my long run. And because of the incredibly wide range of uses that Superblast 3 has, and because it's also just so lightweight and fun while also giving me that max cushion experience, that is definitely my favorite of the bunch. The shoe also comes in a little bit cheaper than the Skyward X2 at a price of $210. So those are my thoughts on the Skyward X2. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about this shoe or any of the shoes that I talked about today. Or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Mondays and Thursdays over on the Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'd love to see you guys over there in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?